of gender equality. Today, we have a representative of the European Commission with us. It is Athanasia Mungu, who is going to present requirements for gender equality in research and innovation within Horizon Europe. Anastasia, if you are ready, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Marion. And good afternoon, everyone. Yes, we had a bit of issues, so I'm trying to share my screen, but I cannot. Would it be possible to move on to the first presentation, to the next presentation, because there are really some issues here. I apologize for this.
Okay, we can do it. Athanasia will present the requirements of European Commission after. And in order to meet the requirement of European and national funding bodies, the research project is developing tools that aim to help researchers, students, and members of the research services. The first presentation, finally, by Mervi Heikkinen from the University of Oulu, will elaborate on theory, tools, and methods to run gender impact assessment. So Mervi, if you are ready, I give you the floor.
Thank you very much, Marion, and very nice to see so many participants online on our conference. Let me open my file and put it on slide. So are you able to see my presentation? Okay, thank you very much. Yes, so hello everybody, my name is Mervi Heikkinen and I work at the Oulu University as a university lecturer since this fall, but also researcher in research project as well. So I would like to present you very briefly and precisely some of the current development in gender impact assessment of research proposals in particular, because that is something that we think that is very important and interesting for researchers nowadays. In general, even though if we would like to people to be interested about these core concepts, sex, gender, and intersectionality, it might be more attractive to talk together with researchers what kind of impact these concepts and these approaches could bring to their research. So therefore, we are now introducing how these concepts could be applied to a grant application, such like European Commission Horizon Europe proposal are. As you are probably very well aware and knowledgeable about the structure, it has excellence, implementation, and impact parts. So therefore, we thought that it would be very helpful and easy access for researchers to also evaluate in advance when they are preparing the application, what kind of role and impact sex, gender, and intersectionality could bring into each of these proposal parts. And as knowing that the evaluators, of course, read very carefully, for instance, from excellence part, how the research project is planned to produce new knowledge in addition to current state of the art, but how sex and gender intersectional analysis, what new they could actually bring to current knowledge. And therefore, we thought that this is, of course, a special focus, but in addition to bring added value, also to bring gender equality plans that institutions do have, we have to take very serious consideration to implementation. And of course, thinking the whole research project, what is the impact of research? Sex, gender, and intersections play critical role over there as well. So let's take a little bit closer look to these three parts: excellence, implementation, and impact, and some questions that we have gathered together with our RESET team in aim to help researchers to find tangible dimension to sex, gender, and intersectionality in their own research. So excellence, what is being researched? Researchers might, together with the research support services staff, elaborate the initial proposal idea, whether they have sex, gender dimensions, and intersectional approach properly taken into account. And that can be related to topic choice, how the topic is framed, how the literature review is done for the particular research, what kind of knowledge gaps there exist. Sex and gender and intersectional analysis might bring something new to these knowledge gaps. And research question even in general is important to elaborate. And here you can see the, should I say, gender impact assessment fitness steps. So you can analyze these different questions related to excellence part in your research. And you can researcher together with the team who is writing the application can just go through these questions which are relevant for them, starting from the very basic questions. I have conducted a literature review and included sex and gender in my search keywords. Yes, I have done that. No, I haven't. I don't know if that's done or this doesn't apply to this particular research. And question by question, researcher team who is preparing the application can go through each of these questions. The next one, I consider gender implications in how I have elaborated my research question and my research goals. Or following one, when thinking the research or data gaps, I consider how gender may play a role in producing such gaps. And on the top of this list, there's even such a question that might be worth of thinking. I include a gender expertise in my team. Would it be worthwhile of considering? So these questions relate to excellence. There can be other questions to be asked, but these are our proposal for those triggering questions that could facilitate further elaboration if sex, gender, and intersectionality are properly taken into account in this excellence part. The following part is implementation, how the research is done and what kind of role sex, gender, and intersectional analysis play there. So it's important to check if quality and effectiveness of the work plan consider, for instance, balanced composition of the research team. And this implementation here very much relates to gender equality plans that are currently like eligibility criterion in Horizon Europe applications. So implementation part, questions such as, in my team, all points of views are heard and all members are listened to. So this is atmosphere, climate of equality in that working environment. So very much relating to general relations and working conditions. The second point, even if the team is not obviously diverse, for instance, that all members come from the same field, so then and they might have gender, similar gender and ethnic background, still the research group can take into account point of views and experiences of all social groups. If this is true, yes, no, I don't know, does not apply. Good question to ponder. Or third question here, I have considered sex, gender, and diversity dimensions in the recruitment, job descriptions, and career paths of research group members. So these questions relate very much to the research team that is conducting the research, and there are different aspects paid attention during the research process. And on top of these ladders, there's again question related to like professional gender expertise. Researchers trained in gender studies are included in the research team. That's something worth of considering again, whether it would be needed, whether it would bring added value. So let's take third part, impact under brief analysis. Why the research is done and what kind of impact is expected. Again, pathways, impacts, contributions, and societal effects of your research are then elaborated. And these questions, step by step, can start from the very basic questions, like I valorize all the members of the research team in the dissemination phase, considering authors, publications, website, keynotes, etc. Or I consider that the results of my research project can have different effects on men and women, boys and girls. So there are various aspects to consider in impact. The impact can be immediate impact for the research team and their careers and future research opportunities and research questions to be studied, but also the dissemination of final results of the research project, those publications, whether they are explicitly sex and gender aware publications, whether they are producing knowledge that is also considering intersectional analysis. And these steps, these questions are not such that these are the only ones. These are examples of the questions that can be useful when writing and planning the research project or research application. But when taking the overview, it's possible to analyze the different parts of the research project or or different aspects that influence to the how the application will be. In planning phase, there are such like assistance available, like Scopus, that helps to researchers to analyze those different research, already existing research and state of the arts, how sex and gender are included in the current knowledge base, and then helps to identify those gaps or gender blindness also. In grant applications, research funding organizations can require sex and gender dimensions and intersectional analysis in applications. So that puts more pressure for researchers to take these dimensions seriously. And of course, gender equality plan is really important document and policy to put in actions also in these projects within the research organization, but also individual projects. And when considering publications, we have such guidelines as SAGER, so provides very clear requirement for researchers when they are publishing their research results. And when thinking the impact of the whole process, the new academic knowledge, we can see that there will be impact to other stakeholders, like businesses and society in general, and civic society. So it's important to consider the whole process. European Commission has produced this 5-step model, which is a little bit different than ours, because we are focusing on grant proposal and different parts of the proposal. This 5-step model focuses on the whole knowledge production process and doesn't go into this grassroots level in such details that we are doing in this RESET tools that we just briefly presented here. But it's important to see the excellence, how it can be built with gender impact assessment tool, and analyzing in details these different dimensions of excellence, implementation, and impact in aim to ensure that findings, products, and programs benefits all citizens and whole society. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mary, for this very enlightening presentation. We are looking forward to discussing these tools with you later. Athanasia, I think you are able to share your screen now, so I give you immediately the floor to present a requirement for gender equality in research and innovation within Horizon Europe. Thank you, Athanasia.
Thank you very much, Marion, and good afternoon again, and sorry for the hiccups that we had. It's a pleasure to be here with you for this webinar, because indeed it's very important to have a gender perspective in all research. And you will also hear you will hear the same things also that Mervyn highlighted, but I will also tell you a bit more about the European policy context and on gender equality in research and innovation, and how also we came here for this provision. So thank you very much also, Marina, for sharing the slides. If we can go to the next slide, please. Yes, and the next one. Thanks a lot. So just to tell you that the European research area is our core policy framework, and within this framework and the policy context, gender equality and gender mainstreaming has been one of the policy priorities since 2012. So we had 3 underpinning objectives to address. Those are the gender equality in scientific careers at all levels, achieving gender balance in decision-making bodies and positions, and of course, integrating the gender dimension in research and innovation content. So to achieve those three objectives, our approach has been institutional change, basically trying to fix the system and not only the numbers through funding, through providing funding to research organizations to implement gender equality plans. So under FP7 and Horizon 2020, if we can go a bit back, please. Thanks. So already under FP7 and Horizon 2020, we have funded more than 200 organizations to implement gender equality plans. And now also as we're moving forward, we're gradually opening our policies to intersectionality and inclusiveness, as also Mervyn mentioned. So if we go to the next slide, we also had quite some changes and updates last year. So now we already have a new European Research Area communication. And already last year, there was a council recommendation to have a pact for research and innovation in Europe with principles and values for the European Research Area. Among those, gender equality and inclusiveness is central. And on top of this, we also have a European Research Area policy agenda that includes actions that will be implemented with European member states for the next years. So among those actions, we have specifically an action on promoting gender equality and fostering inclusiveness, taking note of the Ljubljana Declaration. This declaration was actually spearheaded last year by the Slovenian presidency of the Council to the EU and calls for a renewed commitment to gender equality in RNI. If we go to the next slide, you can see here a bit, we have some more information about this Action 5. So what we want to do, we have 4 interconnected deliverables that essentially refer to our priorities over the next years. So first, we want to develop a policy coordination mechanism to support all aspects of gender equality through inclusive gender equality plans and policies, and also having in place a European network to implement these inclusive gender equality policies. So already now with the new European Research Area policy agenda, there will be a dedicated subgroup to steer things up also at European level. Second, we also want to put in place a strategy to counteract gender-based violence in the European research and innovation system. Also, to further gender mainstreaming and intersectionality to advance the new European Research Area. And finally, we want also, with cooperation and collaboration with research funding organizations, we need to develop principles for the integration of and the evaluation of a gender perspective in research and innovation content. If we go to, here, for example, we can also see some statistics from our monitoring report that tells us how we're doing in terms of gender equality in research and innovation at European level. From our C-Figures report, we can see that we have almost reached gender parity at the doctoral graduate level. However, you can see that in several fields, such as I have highlighted those, for example, in the fields of information communication technologies or in engineering, women still remain underrepresented. They still account for less than 30% among the total number of doctoral graduates. And also when we go higher up in the academic ladder, for example, we can see that women in grade A positions, this name corresponds to full professorship positions, women still represent about 26% of those total positions. And also what is very important, and we're also here today with this webinar, at European level, the publications that have a gender dimension in the research and innovation content is less than 2%. So this has to change. And if we go to the next slide, please. I also wanted to mention something else. We saw that the women are underrepresented in several fields. We refer to those fields as the STEM fields in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. So already now with the new European, there has been the adoption of a European strategy for universities this year, where there is specifically an action on addressing the underrepresentation of women in STEM through a roadmap of activities that includes even a manifesto for gender inclusive STEM education and careers. So STEM here refers to adding the arts in the STEM fields. So what we want to do is to apply creative thinking and arts to make also these STEM fields more attractive for women and girls to study them. So we have also launched a survey last month, and it which will stay actually open until the end of this week. So please also participate in this survey to tell us also your feedback and your input on what such a manifesto needs to address, what kind of priorities need to be addressed. And of course, if you're also interested in the next steps, you can also flag this by taking account, by participating in this survey. Thanks a lot. And if we can go to the next slide, please. So as I already mentioned at the beginning, gender equality is one of the priorities of the European Research Area since for more than 10 years now. So we're even more ambitious now with Horizon Europe, the current framework program for research and innovation. So we have, so gender equality now is a strengthened priority at 3 different levels. First of all, as you're probably aware of, gender equality plans are now an eligibility criterion for higher education institutions, public bodies, and research organizations that are based in any European member state or associated country. The integration of the gender dimension is mandatory by default and is one of the award criteria. And finally, gender balance in research teams is also one of the ranking criteria for proposals that have received the same score. If we go to the next slide, please. As I mentioned, I wanted to focus a bit here to focus more on the gender dimension in research innovation content, as this is also the focus of this webinar. So as I mentioned already earlier, integrating a gender dimension is an excellence criterion for research innovation and innovation actions, and it is evaluated under the soundness of the proposed methodology and also the state of the art. If we go to the next slide, we can see a bit more already what Mervyn introduced to you. The gender dimension into research and innovation content is an umbrella term that refers to integrating sex and or gender-based analysis into the whole process of research and innovation. So from the time that you also set your research questions to when you gather your data, to even when you analyze your data and then you put your research and innovation output into the market, it is very important to consider specific questions about whether it is applicable for your project to integrate such a dimension, because making excellent research, this is also what makes a difference in the society and in the European society and in society as a whole. So if we can move to the next slide, please. Indeed, we also, to help also researchers to make their research more inclusive and think about how a gender dimension in their research and innovation process can be applicable, we also published this Gender Innovations report with concrete case studies in several scientific fields. So you can also get ideas with also some methodologies that we put forward about how you can integrate such a dimension into your projects. So I will also post the links in the chat. And Also, we do have some dedicated funding for gender equality in Horizon Europe. Already now, the work programs for 2023-2024, they are not public yet, so I cannot really give you a lot of information at this stage. But Marina, if we can go to the next slide, please. But just to give you an idea about what we have been funding, for example, we do have for the first time specific funding for gender studies and intersectional research that is funded under Cluster 2, Culture, Creativity and Inclusive Society. At the same time, we also have some specific funding to further our policy on gender equality and further the European research area. So this you can also find under reforming and enhancing the European research and innovation system. And finally, we also have funding to support women innovators under the European Innovation Council because they are traditionally underrepresented in these sectors. I remember from the She Figures report, just to give you an idea, less than 11% of patent applications at European level come from women. So this is also why we want to provide funding to bridge the gender gap in innovation. So as I mentioned, I cannot really share more at this stage, but please keep an eye on the funding and tenders portal, also for the latest news and also for the latest news for funding and some useful resources. Thanks a lot, Marina. You can please check our gender equality in research and innovation policy for the latest updates. And now we are also working on updating the website. So I believe that already by the end of this week, you can also find more information. We also recently published a report on approaches towards inclusive gender equality. So you can also see how we are trying to go beyond gender equality and opening up to intersectionality. And also just some information, we had a European Award for Gender Equality Champions also to reward the institutions that have made the most progress in their gender equality plans. So that ran for the first time this year, and stay tuned also for more news. And that is it from my side. Apologies also for the difficulties that we had. If it's possible, also I can, Marina or Marion, you can also share the slides. I'd be happy to. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Athanasia, for being present today and sharing this information with participants. I would like now to launch the practical part of this webinar that will include case studies from researchers, representatives of different scientific fields. They will recall their experience and tips on gender integration into proposals and execution of projects funded by Horizon 2020 and or Horizon Europe. So we are very glad to welcome today Marc Potts, a researcher from the University of Bordeaux in France, and his project, the project Microcard and Gender. Eva Dural-Gazula, a postdoctoral researcher from the University of Oulu in Finland, and their project Gender Equality in Critical Change Lab. Dalila Chenaf-Nisset, associate professor from the University of Bordeaux in economics, gender, and her project Gender and Unintentional Discrimination. The name of the project is Entered. And finally, Aleksandra Rosalska from Poland, from the University of Łódź, assistant professor, and her project, Fist and Gender. Before the start, I would like to remind that after the session of these case studies, we will have a Q&A time. So all attendees of the webinar can prepare and note their questions or comments and submit them through the Q&A option. Don't forget to indicate the relevant speaker. As you may know, you have a possibility to like or comment on some questions. If a question has multiple votes, we will give it priority. During the Q&A time, we will also have an additional input from the expert from the University of Roubaix in Germany. So Mark, if you are ready, you can start your presentation.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I was a bit early sharing my screen. I'm Mark Potts. I'm a physicist by training, and I coordinate the MicroCard project, which is at the intersection of computer science, computational science, and medicine. It's funded by EuroHPC. That's one of the joint undertakings of the European Union, and it means it's co-funded by the European Union and several the countries of the participants. So our topic is heart disease. Our challenge is that societal challenge is that cardiac disease is the first cause of death in Europe, and half of these deaths are caused by electrical malfunctions. Atrial fibrillation, for example, has 5 million patients in Europe. It's not a mortal disease, but it's a major cause of stroke and other disabilities. Heart failure, also 9 million patients in Europe. And electrical diseases play a large role in this. And then there's ventricular arrhythmias with much fewer patients, but these can be deadly. So electricity in the heart, like in many other organs, cardiac cells are electrically active. Those in the brain also, nerves, for example, are obviously electrically active. And this electricity is used to coordinate the behavior inside the cell, in this case, the contraction of the cell. And just like in only a few other organs, this electricity is also used to communicate from one cell to another. So the heart uses electrical signals to coordinate the contraction so that the whole heart contracts as a unit. Which is very important for its functioning. And this electricity is generated by ion channels in the cell membrane. So in this figure, you see the structure of the cardiac muscle, which is also different from other types of muscle. It's a sort of network with cells that are electrically connected to each other, and inside their membranes, they have these electricity generators that generate the pulsations that allow the cells to coordinate and to contract. And what we want to do is to mathematically model this. And why? Well, modeling is to theory what experiment is to nature. So you can study systems, biological systems, for example, by doing experiments, and then you get observations, but observations alone do not help you very much if you cannot put them in, if you cannot somehow integrate them into a theory. If you don't have a theory, you're just doing a stamp collection. So we have theories that allow us to predict things, and we need to test these theories. And to do that, you have a theory, you make a prediction. But if the system that you're talking about is complex, you need mathematical models to make those predictions. You have to sort of do an experiment on your theory in order to arrive at a prediction. And there, in these models, that is our work. These models can be very complex indeed, and yeah, that's what we are working on. So until now, this cardiac system has been modeled with something we call the bidomain model. There are about 2 billion cells in a human heart, and that is way too many to model them all individually. So what we did so far is that instead of all these interconnected cells, we did as if the whole interior of all cells together was one continuous space, and the whole extracellular space is another continuous thing. And then these two continuous spaces we divided into little blocks, but not with any block representing a cell, but each block would represent hundreds of cells. And if we do that, we can model a human heart with something like only a few dozen million elements. And then a typical national level supercomputer, like the one pictured on the right, is more than large enough to do this kind of calculations. However, the bi-domain model has limitations. As I said, it has no notion of individual cells, and therefore it cannot represent damaged tissue. And we are getting more and more aware that damage and structural damage in the tissue is important in these electrical diseases, because if cells disappear, or if they are poorly connected to each other, like in these two examples, then also the electrical coordination becomes problematic. And the heart can enter into an arrhythmia that can be possibly fatal. So our solution is to build a model in which individual cells are discretized. So before we had something like 200 cells per model element, and in the future we want to have the opposite, more like 1,000 model elements per cell, and where every cell shape is modeled and the connections between the cells are modeled all individually. So this, as you can see by these numbers, this is a priori going to be 200,000 times larger. And that is something that we cardiac modelers didn't know how to do alone. So we came up with the MicroCard project, where cardiac modelers, that is biomedical engineers, typically work together with numerical scientists, with computer scientists, as in real experts in high performance computing and in very large calculations. The project is about integrating different pieces of software. We start out from several existing softwares that we adapt to each other and to the problem, and then all those elements together will result in what we call an exascale cell-by-cell simulation code. The exascale means that you can do 10 to the 18th calculations per second. And that is something computers that are capable of doing that are going to be in Europe in the next couple of years. And EuroHPC is funding projects that can make good use of these computers. So that is our chance to our opportunity. So there are actually two pieces of software that we're going to create. The other one is about mesh generation, but about how we are going to create these geometrical models that we need with their billions of elements. And finally, we're going to use these two codes to do some use cases, to do some actual research using this software in collaborations with medical researchers. So that's what we want to do now. Who we are, a pretty diverse community, 50 or 60 people who are actively involved inside this project, from PhD students to emeritus professors. But as you see, I looked at the numbers. There are slightly more mustaches than women in this picture, and I'm not even ashamed of that, because it can be much worse in the field of computer science and computational science. So in Western societies, ever since the 1970s or 1980s, there is the perception that computer science is a man's job. Even though the first computer programmers were women, programming languages were invented by women, but ever since the 1980s we have this notion that this is for boys, and there's not so much that a project coordinator like me can do about this. So you see, we have about almost 1/4 women, but if we go to particular categories, for example, the management team, you see that everything becomes very traditional. Our project manager is a woman, but the scientific coordinators are men. We have an executive board, that's the organ in the project that does the day-to-day management and the coordination of the project. There's exactly one woman on board. And if we look only at the principal investigators, so the people who represent the partners, there are 0. On the other hand, because we are a bunch of computer scientists and computational scientists, but we want to work together with cardiologists and physiologists, we also have what we call an end-user advisory board. So the idea is we build software. This software is going to be used by people like us, because it's not exactly user-friendly software, but there's someone interested behind, and that is medical researchers. And there we grasped our opportunity. Medicine, cardiology is a much larger field than ours. It's also a bit more feminine, so it was not hard to find a lot of women for the end-user advisory board. Actually, we invited 3 women and 1 man, and the 1 man later on asked to be replaced by one of his co-workers. So we have a 100% feminine end-user advisory board now. And that may look a bit like a cheap trick, but I think there's actually much use in this, because our junior researchers who see very few female senior researchers around them have the opportunity to see a lot more of them. You can just see the example, like, yes, you can be the head of a lab section, an associate professor, a full professor, or a cardiologist. So to recap on gender issues in MicroCard, we have the European requirements, of course. We must promote equal opportunities. So what we did in recruitment, we did our best to write inclusive language in job descriptions and to avoid any sort of bias in our recruitment. Now, I want to be realistic about this. In recruitment, if we advertise a position, the number of candidates is often between 0 and 1. So we actually have to the 2 most recent recruitments. There was exactly 1 candidate on each, and one of them happened to be a man and the other happened to be a woman. And we have 1 occasion where 1 woman won against 3 men, mainly on motivation. In terms of functioning, we strive for working conditions that allow a good work-private balance. So basically, we don't have meetings after 5 p.m. That's not only good for mothers, but also for fathers, who are more numerous in the project. We try to be available if there are any problems anywhere. We aim for a gender balance in presentations and keynotes. We don't exactly reach it, but it's closer than if you look at the people alone. And we try to provide some real-life role models, like in the end-user advisory board. In a wider context, we strive for outreach to students at all levels, especially the younger ones, using events like Girls' Day, that's something that exists in Germany, and in France, events that are called Moi Mathématicienne and Moi Informaticienne and Chiche. We encourage our female members to represent us in general public events, Open Door Days, for example, European Researchers' Night, and we try to give them a bit more than average coverage in news and social media. So my final slide on a little evaluation, not a very formal evaluation. I think in recruitment we did pretty well, more luck than power, I would say, but we don't have a formal evaluation of this. We didn't have much on paper. There's very little about the issue in the proposal, in the management plan, for example, and we didn't have that many ideas when we wrote the proposal, but what we could do. So what I would like to do better in a future project is, for example, to set out that we verify research outputs for absence of gender stereotypes. This is something we actually do, but we didn't promise to do it. Work with a gender expert. I think that's actually a good idea. And provide gender equality training. That is also something that we wanted to do, but nobody could tell us where to get it from. So with that, thank you for listening.
Mark, we thank you for presenting your experience on the don't hesitate to ask questions.
Yep.
A function and to comment or criticize the checklist that Mervi had presented. It will be very, very interesting for us. And now we will continue this session with a presentation by Eva Dural-Gazula, who will provide some insights on the issue of gender equality in the Critical Change Lab. Eva, you are able to begin once you are ready.
Okay. Thank you, Mariam, for the presentation, and thanks for the invitation to be here. I'm very happy. I'm going to share my screen just a moment. Can you confirm that you are seeing my screen? Yes. Okay. Good. So, what I'm going to present with you is, in this case, it's a project that I will say that it's in a I'm going to go through the process of developing a research proposal, who was successfully accepted in the Horizon program, but we are still in the early stages of defining the grant agreement, so we haven't started the project. The project will start next year, but I think that this can be an interesting case of foreseeing how we have been taking into consideration the gender dimension throughout the framing of the proposal. So just as a bit of context.
Eva, sorry to interrupt. We perfectly see full screen, but not full screen. Can you put full screen?
Oh, that's interesting because I'm okay. Okay, let me revise that. Can you see it now?
Not
No.
full.
That's interesting. Okay. Wait a moment, I will kind of share again.
Okay, thank you.
Now?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good. Apologies. Okay, so going to the context of this proposal, it was as mentioned, it was a proposal for a Horizon program call. In this particular case, the call was reshaping democracies. We were focusing on the topic was education for democracy, and it was a research and innovation action. And just to give you some aspects that were explicitly mentioned in the call, they were asking for developing models that will contribute to provide robust evidence for designing curricula in support of democracy. It was also mentions to develop formulating toolkits for enhancing humanistic and civic aspects of education. And here there was a lot of emphasis in participatory approaches, and in general there was the expectation that what was the proposed in the project will contribute to strengthen democratic processes in education. So with this brief, I will say that the team that we were coordinating this proposal we were researchers from University of Oulu. Actually from the I would say scientific coordination was Marianne Kinula, she's the project PI, and myself, I'm co-PI. And we were also getting and working together during this first stage, getting the support from University of Oulu Research Services, from Kirsi Oudou-Kangas and Elina Rossi. So this was our starting point, and from here we started to build a consortium. I would say that the rationale for selecting the participants in the partners in the consortium, well, we were basically based on who had critical expertise for the project, also reaching our networks. I would say that that's common practice, who might be the best for providing expertise on a particular area and who you have access to. I would say that the consortium is a mix of partners that are coming from research for 3 universities, 1 research institute, and also from practice would be NGOs and SMEs. And here I would say that everyone had experience in this type of actions. And another critical aspect is that for all of them, work on democracy values in education, especially in non-formal environments, was something that was at the core of their practice. So I will go just a moment. I will go into the gender dimension, but I think that this is information that you need to get an idea of what we were proposing. This is in a very short nutshell. If you're interested, I can retake this in the conversation, but so you know what we were proposing in for this application. The Critical Change Lab project deals with developing a model for supporting democracy education in learning environments. And we are having here a bottom-up approach in which active participation from different educational stakeholders, but especially young people are at the very core of this model. And some key ideas that are quite central, and I will say that these are then strongly connected with the gender aspects, are the notion towards the building interventions that not only support democracy and civic engagement, but also justice-oriented transformations. And from the methodological point of view, we are using participatory action research and participatory evaluation. So, as you might notice, the notion of participation is very central in this proposal. And that's something that I will say that relates to gender. And that's also something that the reason why for us it was really important to adopt a gender mainstreaming approach. So here we were building on the approach that was proposed by the European Institute of Gender Equality, dealing with gender mainstreaming. And what do we mean by this? Well, we mean promoting equality across all aspects of the project. So in our case, it was not only what is the expertise of the research team, or how are we collecting data, or what are the participants that are, who are the participants that are being involved in the actions, but also the notion of what are the questions that we are addressing, what are we aiming with this project. And this, I would say, in our case, it wasn't that challenging or difficult, because that was something that already, when looking at the description of the call, that was also explicitly mentioned. But of course, these are part of the values, and that was part of the agenda that we also wanted to support with this proposal. So, but going back to the process of how we developed this proposal, I will say that we got a lot of support internally, and also we rely on the expertise of Laureate partners. But one of the materials that was also being as part of the support for thinking about these aspects during the process was the Gender Impact Assessment Checklist. And as Mervi was presenting, the checklist is divided in 3 different sections. It's about areas, about excellence, implementation, and impact. And I wouldn't say that we were following as each question per se, but it was also giving us a good basis to where to start thinking about aspects, and also how to guide some of the discussions that we were having with the partners throughout the project preparation. Some aspects regarding gender that I would like to highlight. First is that we had a strong expertise in the team. Here, I would say that all partners had projects and initiatives that were dealing with gender and supporting gender equality, and also especially the inclusion of groups at risks, not only gender. So it was more intersectional approach. But here, I would like to highlight 2 projects that were important for the project as background, and that were are happening when we are doing the project preparation. And so one is FIRSE, that was feminist movements for revitalizing democracy in Europe. This project is led by European Alternatives, who is one of the partners of the consortium, and also RESET. So, and here I'm personally involved also in RESET in some co-design actions. So I would say that there was a good knowledge of what is we can benefit from the outputs that are happening through this project that are already ongoing. So as mentioned before, here in our case, the gender dimension was not only about the practices, but also from a content point of view. So, and some of our research questions were already reflecting this, the importance of a perspective that was more looking into gender aspects. I would say from here, I would like to highlight that we are in the project, we're looking at how to support democratic values, but we are also looking for this transformation and considering the current state of democracy in Europe, I would say globally, but in our case, we're focusing more in what's going on in Europe. I would say that we were looking at how to support these democratic values in contexts in which there is a history of ethnic, gendered, and social polarization. So as you might notice, it's intersectional, and it's at the very center of what we are aiming to explore with this initiative. Here also, like for you to get like from the methodological perspective, I was mentioning that we are using PAR and also we are like using participatory evaluation. PAR, participatory action research, one of the aspects that is quite significant is like usually you have different several cycles, and you have like moments for reflection. And this is something that is important in the project and also regarding data collection practices. So we are not only collecting data like but we are actually having a high level of like involvement and self-reflection of the people that we are going to involve in the different critical change labs. So in terms of recruitment of participants, that I would say that that's perhaps one of the most like common dimensions in which gender equality is approached. Yes, we strive to have like I would say like equal representation, but we are also hoping to involve people who are like from communities who have had historically little opportunities to engage in social participation. So again, just to reinforce, we are looking more for an intersectional approach, and we have partners who have like already like good practices going on about like how to engage these groups that might be at risk or in a more vulnerable situation. And I would say that also as part of the project, we seek like it's not only like who we recruit, but what data we collect and how we analyze this data. So here we are paying attention to or we seek to pay attention to aspects that might be like more like not reinforcing, but like assuming like stereotypes and social and cultural factors towards participation. So that's something that we are planning to pay attention to. That we want to support like reflection on that, also to ideate and like devise like not only like in terms of like the outputs of the project, but also like the process wise how we support like a more like conscious facilitation of participation regarding this like these social and cultural factors. And also like another aspect that we considered important, and it starts to connect more like how to think about the impact of the project, is like aspects connected to the gender dimension in like reporting and dissemination. So it's not only that we will conduct this sex and gender analysis, but also like when we disseminate activities, who is presenting the results, who are we interviewing in case that we go for like more like focus groups or like more panel discussions, and also how are we facilitating all this process. So it's not since the project is participatory, like how the planning of this participation that we are going to conduct, it's something that is very critical. And for that, during the project proposal, we reached the conclusion that we needed some sort of like code of conduct to ensure that we have like a consistent like communication and reporting of the results, and that we take into consideration gender aspects. So these are like things that I would say that are like part of the proposal. So, and my point here is that we were like really looking for not just having the gender dimension as something that is more like a process or like who we recruit, but something that is at the very core of the proposal. So just to have like 3 final remarks. The gender dimension for us was something that we saw that not only from the point of view of methodology, but also that it should be like aligned with the research goals. So that's something that we were like really making an effort to pair. Also building and relying on the expertise and commitment from the project partners who had like initiatives that were relevant for this. And finally, like consideration the sex and gender dimension also like in the reporting and dissemination of activities, because this is something that has a direct connection with impact as it like informs policy and practice. So thank you so much, and I will be happy to follow up with questions.
Thank you very much, Eva, for this very comprehensive and enriching presentation of your practices. Alexandra, if you are ready.
Yes, hello everyone. Welcome to everyone. I'm really happy to be here. I apologize for my voice. It's been a long-term infection, but I will do my best to speak today. I'll share the presentation now. And please let me know whether you can see it in a full screen mode.
Yes, it's perfect, Alexandra.
Okay, well, excellent. Thank you so much. Well, it's an interesting experience to me because I'm an active member of RESET, and also a member of the team that is coordinating another project that is not so much focused perhaps on gender equality and gender studies as RESET is. But nonetheless, there are some really important gender components of this project that I wanted to share with you. My name is Aleksandra Różalska, and I am, my affiliation is the Department of Cultural Research at the University of Łódź, and I'm also the head of the Women's Studies Center at the University of Łódź. And my background is in cultural studies and gender studies. And this presentation has been co-developed with my colleague from my FEAST team, Dr. Kaja Zapędowska-Kling, with whom I work on FEAST. So first, the acronym, what FEAST stands for: Food Systems that Support Transitions to Healthy and Sustainable Diets. And here you have some basic information about the project and the consortium. The project FEAST has been funded by the Horizon Europe program. This is a pretty long project. It's foreseen for 5 years, and it has already started on July 1st, 2022. However, we are on a very initial stage of realization of this project. Nonetheless, the work has already started, and we already have a pretty clear idea about what we would like to do and also how important gender will be throughout the whole process. As you can see, FEAST consortium is pretty large. I don't know, perhaps you know consortia that are so big, but for me, it's the first time I'm working within such a huge, but also very diverse consortium. We have 35 partners, 13 coming from higher education and research institutions, 10 are non-governmental organizations. There are 9 public bodies. Usually these are municipalities of certain cities or regions, and also 3 private companies. And I think this diversity of partners and also diversity of various members of our consortium in terms of gender, age, nationalities, ethnicities, and so on, inscribes itself into this intersectional approach towards the organization of research teams. You can visit our website, and maybe Marina will put the link to our website in the chat. And we have also already our hashtag that we are using in our social media. This is a more graphic version, a more graphic illustration of how diverse the consortium is. And I wanted to show you that this consortium represents also various regions and various places of Europe. So there are certain groups that are represented: Anglo-Saxon, Central European, Scandinavian, Southern, and Eastern European. So altogether we have 15 countries participating in the project. So the project is also diverse in terms of geographical locations. And those countries, in those countries, there will be 13 living labs established throughout the project. And I'll talk about living labs in a moment. So this is our consortium, pretty diverse group of partners. And now, although the project does not specifically tackles gender dimension, or the field is interdisciplinary food studies, and Well, by interdisciplinary, I really mean people representing various fields of study, from health studies to nutrition, but also we have also some policy studies, scholars that deal with policies, and also cultural studies and gender studies like us. Although the project has not such a clear focus on gender, already in its main objectives, gender is emphasized. And I have put here on the slide 4 main objectives of the whole project that were outlined in the proposal. So first of all, the first aim is to identify, understand, and measure the barriers and facilitators that influence the dietary behavior of different groups, particularly vulnerable groups. And our project actually provides our own definition of a vulnerable group, but also its main focus is on vulnerable groups. And of course, vulnerability can be measured in different ways, but we focus on differences that are geographical, socioeconomic, behavioral, gender, and cultural. Okay, so the second objective is to co-create innovative and effective tools, programs, and strategies, including social innovations, in collaboration with key stakeholders in Europe. And this co-creation includes also taking into consideration the perspective of various groups of people, including men and women. Thirdly, the project aims at empowering individuals to lead healthier lives by adopting healthier and more sustainable dietary behavior. And this will be investigated and measured through gender lenses as well. And finally, the final aim is to boost the adoption of food and healthy policy interventions. And again, the work package that deals with policy interventions promises that those interventions will take into account gender perspective. What are FEAST goals for us, for our university, for our team? Well, first of all, and I want to say it quite straightforwardly, we were invited, we as partner, the Women's Studies Center, the University of Łódź, we were invited to this project to provide gender expertise into the project activities and results. This is actually specifically stated in the project proposal. So not only we will contribute to certain work packages, but the coordinator wants us to have a general overview of whether each work package takes into consideration gender in a proper way. And so this is one of the hints that perhaps we can give to researchers, that this is a good idea to ask a specific partner to do the gender expertise. Then the second aim for our university is to create a living lab within work package 4 co-developed community-based solution. And our living lab will focus on the intersection of gender and age, and possibly class and economic status. And I'll say a couple of sentences about it in a moment. And thirdly, we will participate in proposing policy recommendations with regards to food interventions within work package 7, policy dialogues to inform food system governance. We will probably mostly work with municipalities on this matter. I will not outline, you have this on the slide, I will not read it, but our work package that deals with living labs has also its aims. But I think the first aim is worth underlining. So each living lab that will be proposed within the project, and I remind you that there will be 11 living labs will focus on a vulnerable group. And this establishment and work will involve such groups as seniors, children, migrants, and women. Of course, various living labs will be addressing various groups. And the aim is to co-develop certain community-based, so grassroots-based solutions that will target different groups and actors, also different with regards to gender. And a couple of sentences about the Living Lab that we are going to establish and we are going to work on. We have already selected a site. The site will be Senior Day Center, Senior Vigor in Tushin, which is a small village near Łódź. The current population size of this center is 21 residents and 19 is on a standby list. And the age range is between 60 and 96. As you can see, in terms of diversity, women outnumber men significantly. So there are 18 women and 3 men. But there is also a diversity in terms of economic status. It's either low or middle economic class. There is no ethnic diversity, as Poland is pretty heterogeneous in terms of ethnicity and nationality. And there are few residents with cognitive impairments or dementia. So as you can see, our Living Lab will be established using the intersections of gender, age, and possibly other factors. And what is the food culture in this day center? Well, the meals are shared every day and play a strong integrating role. They accompany the celebration of various national, Catholic, local holidays, but also like events that take place in the center. They symbolize the home-like warmth and coziness of the place. However, and this is our main challenge, there is not so much reflection on the origin or quality of the food. And our Living Lab will aim at demonstrating the links between nutrition and healthy aging, but also, and importantly for this webinar, to address gender-related problems and phenomena of nutrition and healthy aging. And then we of course also want to raise consciousness, to educate residents and staff, to improve the quality of everyday menu, but also to initiate cooperation with various actors that are important in this process. We have also identified some challenges that perhaps I will not talk about now because I know that my time is running out. So now on the level of the whole project. So how was gender included in the project? So already as a general commitment, it has been openly said in the project proposal. And I have a quotation from the project proposal here. We will actively integrate and apply gender analysis across all components of the project to ensure that we are continuously evaluating gender norms and stereotypes, particularly linked to the vulnerable groups, while also ensuring that we are considering and addressing the emerging needs of all genders. Okay, so this is the general rule for the whole project. And I have put here 2 examples of different work packages that in various ways address the need of including gender dimension. So work package number 5, which is called co-developed text-based solutions, will provide analysis of preferences for label choices in the intervention group and how they are influenced by socioeconomic characteristics of the individuals, and age, gender, geographical location. And of course, these are very proxy to vulnerability. And work package 6, which is called understanding and measuring the impacts, will provide analysis of food and dietary choices of target groups stratified by gender, age, and socioeconomic situation. So as you can see, although the project is not focusing solely on gender, there is gender across the proposal and across the plan of activities. Here you have it in a more graphic, presented in a more graphic way. So this FEAST approach to gender dimension is on all of those 3 levels that both Mervi and also other speakers were talking about. So on the level of collecting and analyzing information, on the level of co-design, community, technology, and policy-based solutions, and on the level of dissemination, exploitation, and communication. And now I think to come back to what Mervi was saying, so to our checklist and how checklists can be in a way used while preparing the project proposal. And I have put 3 aspects of the checklist here in relation to FEAST. So first of all, ensure that we are collecting and analyzing information from different elements of the food system, but also an account for the gender dimension in our analysis. Secondly, ensure that FEAST's co-designed community-based, technology-based, and policy-based solutions are done with, and I would add, for gender diverse individuals. And thirdly, ensure that the dissemination, exploitation, and communication fully accounts for the gender dimension, that it is designed including the gender dimension, and that the results of our actions foresee how the results can affect both sorry, women and men. So that's it for what I have prepared for today. I'm looking forward to questions and comments. You know, if there is the need of expertise in how to write applications, I think the Reset Consortium is actually a good one to turn to. Thank you very much, and apologize for my condition.
Thank you, Alexandra, for showcasing the project and its initiative. We can see there's some questions that were submitted during the presentation to enable all speakers to prepare their answer, and perhaps also all the attendees to ask final questions in order to have no regret. We would like to invite an expert from the Ruhr-Bochum University in Germany to share her experience on gender and production of excellence in the project during 5 minutes perhaps. Marieke Doorman is the coordinator Equal Opportunities and Diversity in the Cluster of Excellence CASA at Ruhr University Bochum in Germany. This cluster is dedicated to transdisciplinarity IT security research and is a collaboration between several top universities in Germany and the Netherlands. She has a background in cultural anthropology and migration study, and also works as a freelance consultant and facilitator for diversity, gender equity, and anti-discrimination. Today, she will present us a few best practices in terms of gender equality, identified for excellent research, proposal, and implementation. Marieke, you've got the floor for 5 minutes, perhaps?
Can you hear me? Yes, perfect. Can you also see my full screen? Perfect. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you also for the invitation. My name is Marieke Doorman, and as you just said, I'm the coordinator for Equal Opportunity and Diversity at the Cluster of Excellence, CASA, at the Ruhr University Bochum in Germany. And I think we're a little short on time, so I will maybe skip some general aspects and move right into our examples or practice examples that I brought today. I just want to quickly say what we do at CASA. As you just said, it's a cluster of excellence that focuses on IT security research, transdisciplinary research, and it's a collaboration between several universities, with the head office being in Bochum, where I also work. And yes, today I would like to give you a little report from the field and share with you some equal opportunity and diversity measures from management perspective. So I'm not a researcher, I work at management level or administrational level maybe, and I'm responsible for creating gender equality and more diversity at our IT cluster of excellence. So since CASA, like other research institutions, has primarily focused on increasing the number of female researchers until now, I wanted to show you some statistics first. And we see that out of 36 PIs, in total, we have 10 female PIs, and out of 50 PhDs and postdocs in total, we have 13 female PhDs and postdocs. So you can see there's some kind of imbalance between the genders, but we want to, which also refers to the numbers that Athanasia Mungu showed earlier, but we also want to not only focus on the numbers, we also want to focus on making an impact in other kinds of ways. We also have to mention that people who don't identify as male or female have not been included into this statistics until now. So some of the measures that we have at our cluster of excellence aim specifically at this group, at the group of females and non-binary people, to create spaces for them to network, to grow, to share experiences. And some other measures focus on raising awareness on for gender equality in general and related topics at our research cluster. So the first measure, or the first important thing we have, is the internal measure of having a equal opportunity and diversity board, which is the most important board for us. It decides about the funds and discusses new ideas, feedback, for example, workshop ideas, events we want to organize, stuff like that. And on the board, there are all status groups represented. We have 2 PIs. One of them also brings in the parent perspective, which is also important to us. We have 2 PhDs and 1 postdoc, and the board gets elected every 2 years and is coordinated by me. Internally, we also offer workshops or trainings to raise awareness for the topic, as I just said. And this month, for example, we have a workshop on sexism and sexualized violence. And we are also planning a unconscious bias training for hiring committees. Networking is also very important for us, networking and recruiting. We have the monthly organized IT security regulars table for women. And here we sometimes just meet up and connect with each other, ask for advice, stuff like that. But also we sometimes invite guest speakers who share some career advice and insights into their work. A big part for us, or a big event for us, is also the WISC, the Women in Security and Cryptography Conference, which is a biannual event happening the next time in 2023. And it is a gathering of international female early career researchers. And we also invite top speakers from different countries, and we have panels, networking sessions, and much more, which is a great opportunity for the participants to connect and plan maybe their next career paths or steps. And last but not least, we have several supporting measures as well. Family friendliness, as I just mentioned, is very important for us to support young fathers and mothers. and which is why we have a big active parenthood support program, which helps new parents adjusting to the new responsibility and relieving them a bit from their academic work. We also are in the process of creating a diversity mentoring program, which acknowledges that people at CASA not only face different kinds of discrimination, which can be obstacles in academia, and we want to provide mentoring for this target group. Also, we regularly sponsor conferences, summer schools, events like that aim to create gender equality in IT security. And as my last slide, I want to share some thoughts, learnings, open questions, also looking at the upcoming Q&A, which might also be important or interesting for you. So what we learned is that gender equality and diversity measures are decision-making factors when a researcher decides in favor or against the research institution, whether to work there or apply there or not. So I had several people emailing me asking about our diversity programs before applying for a position, which shows us how important it is to evaluate and evolve your programs and measures and have a strong stance as a research institution. And I heard so many very good input today, which helps us always evolve and evaluate our programs as well. So yeah, as I already mentioned, until now we worked a lot with the gender binary of male and female, but are currently working on how to be more aware of gender diversity and include more genders in our offers. And related to that, we also think about intersectionality, which was also mentioned today, and how to implement this concept on management level when we think about what we can offer for our members and affiliated people. And yeah, last but not least, the learning, thought, and also open question is that we still find it hard to find allies for equal opportunities. So especially at a technical institution where everyone is focused on their excellent research, it is hard sometimes to motivate people to go the extra mile and help striving for gender equality. And yeah, but of course it is always important to have people participating in your events, in the events you organize, to promote the offers we have, to spread the word, and also show up even if you feel like you are not affected by gender-based disadvantage. And this is something, or these are some thoughts we are thinking about currently, and yeah, maybe we can take some of that into the Q&A as well. Thank you to all of you for your great input today, that we can also take into our work. And yeah, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Marieke, for sharing with us your vision of best practices, and thank you for all panelists. Finally, we can see it is not anymore only about gender integration, but also about intersectional approach in project proposal. So before answering the questions, we would like to ask you to answer in this poll whether you are interested in the similar events to be run by the RESET project. So I suppose there's a link somewhere. Yeah, thank you. And thank you for your answer. Okay, thank you. Thank you. It's very motivating for us. And thank you not to have answered no. Perhaps we can now try to answer the questions in the chats. I have seen a question, the first question at the university, for the University of Bordeaux, and about trainees. Perhaps yes. The answer is yes. That is to say, for the Bordeaux team, within the university, we will have a doctoral training in January. On this point, we have sensitized the equality reference of the lab and the department research. And yes, we can provide training based on the checklist. Also, don't hesitate to come back to us. And at the consortium level, perhaps, Merve, when you'll have the floor, but you can say how the Oulu team can help on specific project, very few specific projects, perhaps. And in addition, I have to say that the University of Lodz, is in charge of the work package trainings that we will broadcast 23 and 24. And Alexandra, when you have the floor, don't hesitate to intervene in this topic if you want. So there's a question, and I think that panelists have already answered to the question, but perhaps they can sum up already the answer. Perhaps Mark, if you are ready, perhaps you can sum up for everyone. Orally, your answers?
Yes.
Thanks.
So in my last slide, I mentioned that microcard participants do verify research results for absence of gender stereotypes, although did not promise this in the proposal. What does this mean? Well, I was a bit inaccurate. I talked about gender stereotypes, but I think that those are very rare in publications. This is more an issue in publicity about the project. And as for the publications, what you sometimes see is general masculines that talking about people as he and his. This is something that I think we all agree that it should not happen, but accidentally it does. And we do have an obligation to ask our partners permission for publications. And on that occasion, we read each other's manuscripts, and we will spot it and we will fix it. And about gender stereotypes in publicity, well, I think we avoid them, and I more suspect journalists sometimes, especially TV makers. They look for stereotypical images, like a woman sitting at a screen and a man standing behind her and pointing at something. I've heard about my colleagues for being asked to wear lab coats. Because they have to look like scientists, that kind of stupid things. We refuse to do that. And then the other question was, do you think that diversity in the project team is having an impact on the results or on the content of the productions? Well, I don't think so. I've never seen it. The only thing is, if you look at actual cardiology, maybe women are a bit more aware of gender issues, which there are big differences in physiology of human hearts, of female hearts and in male hearts. Those issues are being worked upon, and I have the impression that it's a bit more women working on them. They are more likely to make it their main topic. So yes, there it can be important. For us, it's important to have more candidates, and if half of the population is excluded a priori, that hurts us. So we want girls to be candidates for jobs.
Okay, and Mary, I think you have got a very interesting question, very relevant for some researcher. What to do when my project doesn't have any relation to gender? There are no female experts in my field, and the literature doesn't contain any reference to gender. So if you can answer to this question and perhaps the others, you're welcome.
Oh yes, thank you very much. Of course, that can be the case, that there's not, that sex or gender doesn't have anything to do with the research, and we can think that such area could be like mathematics or some physics research projects, but always researcher can state, give a judgment why gender or sex doesn't play a role in this research content. But when thinking research team, we already know that gender plays a role there. Athanasia Mungu just showed those statistics, C figures, how gender plays a role in different disciplinary areas. And we know that if there's a deep gender-based segregation in the field, then the homogeneous research group views issue much more in a homogeneous way, and diversity in a research group might produce different type of research questions, different types to write research reports, different ways to approach the whole research problem, and different ways of access to analyze the research questions with different populations. But also it is the dynamics in the research team. The diversity influences also there. And if there isn't any publications that has gender specificity in there, maybe it would be important thing to study first. Is it really the case? And analyze the published authors in that particular field. What they have been doing research on, what kind of themes, how their career has progressed, and etc. And they aim to better get the picture. What kind of role sex and gender actually might play in that field, to have that basic critical researcher mind to really elaborate this question. So we can always produce new questions and analyze these things deeper. And it would be really wonderful if we could have some sort of like a together with research universities, at least, to have some sort of like application clinics where we could go through some of these research ideas, how sex, gender, and intersectional analysis could play a role in different parts of the application. So maybe that's something that we will create together with you, Marion, and Marina and Alexandra together.
Yeah. Yes, we hope so. Alexandra, perhaps you can answer on this question, the way you monitor gender equality in teams and in target groups, and perhaps if you want, perhaps some words about the work package 4, that is to say the training in research relating to the first question.
Yes, okay, so the first question, the question that I got from in the chat was about whether the project has a specific mechanism to monitor equality in teams and in target groups. Where in teams, I think at the level of preparation of the proposal, this has already been taken into consideration. Our WUCH team is 50-50. So we have 2 women, 2 men. And I would have to count, okay, but I think there is equality at the level of the consortium. Now, the second question, I think very much important, is how people who are doing research with and for the target groups within Living Labs, for example, how they are going to ensure equality. And of course, it's a very a challenging issue, okay? Because I showed you our living lab. I showed you the site that we are going to investigate. And we will, of course, take into consideration similar sites in our region like that. But it's going to be very difficult to have a parity between men and women, because simply in those daycare centers, there are more women. Women live longer, okay? And I think, so you know, it's like, this is why we have living labs, to have this really context-specific analysis, because, you know, we will be able to ask a question: why there are so few men in those daycare centers? Yes, is it connected to their food choices? Is it connected to their health? And you know, so questions like that. And I think this is why the project it focuses also on very local cases, okay, in order to analyze very context-specific situations, but also it will give us fuel to build some policy recommendations, okay? But this is a very good question, and since the project has just started, I might not know all the answers. I will go back to my colleagues, and during our next meetings, I will ask them how they are going to reach, you know, equality in their target groups. So I might be able to share with you some more knowledge about in the future. And then about the second question, so the training offer, well, to put it boldly, I think we will be very happy if other people than research people will be using our training tools, okay? Our training tools are actually in preparation right now as we speak. Our second deliverable, which is the toolbox, is actually almost ready. We are working on its final version, including all of the comments from the partners and also on its visual attractiveness. But it's done, and actually it's divided into 8 modules, and some of the modules will be connected directly with the topic of our today's webinar, okay? Because there will be a separate module on gender dimension and research and teaching, and GIA is a very important element. Maybe we have, you know, emphasized GIA all over the place. And also intersectionality, but there is also a separate module on JEP implementation. So, you know, perhaps, you know, a step backwards, like you probably have to have your JEP first in order to start thinking about gender dimension and research, or you can do it simultaneously. But anyways, this toolbox, which is just a starter, because next year we are going to supplement the toolbox with all of the training content, okay? But the toolbox will be there already available next year, because it's a public deliverable. So we will share it. So you will be already, you will be encouraged to have a look at it and to see whether you need it as a whole, or perhaps you need some of the modules for particular target groups in your institution, or particular, I don't know, research teams and, you know, different target groups at your institution. And once it's ready with the content, we will, I think we couldn't be happier more if people actually get to use it after research ceases to exist, because this is the aim of these projects, that, you know, we produce knowledge and tools that are sustainable. So yeah, so just to put it simply, yes, we will provide training, but at least tools for training to everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this precision. Now we will let Eva to provide answer to the several questions addressed to her. And there's a common question for Dalila and Eva. So Dalila, I will give the floor just after. Thank you, Eva.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, there were like several questions. I would say that maybe one of them was like that I think that maybe also can follow up on that, because they were asking why like there hasn't been like an explicit well approach to intersection in the GIA co-design in the GIA checklist. So maybe I let you like answer on that. And from the questions that were addressed to me, I'm checking, but. Yeah, maybe the one that I think that will be that I would like to highlight here is they were asking about like the use of APA and as reference style guide, and in the sense that it's actually like, well, reinforcing a particular way of knowledge building or like giving visibility to certain. So, and I think that this is something that was already like appearing in some recent co-design workshops that we're having about the GIA checklist. And I think that this is something that, well, it opens the door for like a reflection in the community, because many times when these questions appear regarding how do you reference and how do you acknowledge other contributions, people feel quite powerless. And while they not necessarily might agree with that, but they feel forced to use that because it's if they want to publish in certain venues. So I will kind of would like to highlight this question to the community, because I think that as like this, there are many other open issues that I think that require a bit more like, open reflection and maybe action.
Okay, thank you, Eva. Perhaps to finish, Marieke, how to combine policy of excellence and policy of equality? We are, with this question addressed to you, at the heart of research, and we are very, very interesting to answer you. To finish.
Yes, yeah, I think it's a super interesting question, and I would, as I just wrote, thank you for the question. To me, I would really like to see gender equality and being part of criteria for excellence. And right now, for example, the German Research Foundation, who is sponsoring our cluster of excellence, is changing their approach on gender equality, and they also want, or they try to push this topic as well, and they changed their guidelines. They have guidelines for research, and they changed it to push gender equality. And I really like seeing these things, because this is something we can say. It's not only me who says it's important, it's also the German Research Foundation. They say it's important. But what we also experience is that many people still do not recognize the importance of gender equality and diversity work. And this is something that I don't only experience in universities, but also in other fields that do not necessarily have this culture of questioning like societal structures. And this is not the case. Like, we are an IT security cluster, so people do not necessarily read about issues like gender equality. This is something we have to actively train them for. And so this process is very slow. But I think also with the approach of the German Research Foundation and with the work we do, we are slowly moving in the right direction. Yeah.
Okay, so it is the end of this webinar. Thanks to everyone who attended and